There's a good chance that someone watching this video right now carries the DNA of the Mongols. It's a wild thought, but it's not just speculation, it's backed by science. The Mongol Empire wasn't just the largest land empire in history. It was also one of the most powerful forces of genetic expansion the world has ever seen. But how did a small nomadic tribe from the steppes of Mongolia leave such a massive imprint on the global gene pool? What made their DNA spread so far? And how does it still exist in millions of people today? The truth is far more fascinating than you might think. When we think about Genghis Khan and the Mongols, we picture fierce warriors on horseback, conquering vast territories at an unimaginable speed. But their military dominance wasn't the only thing that endured. Science now reveals that their genes traveled just as far as their armies did. One particular genetic marker, CM217, has been found in up to 16 million men today, spanning from Northeast Asia all the way to Central Asia, and even parts of Europe. It's been nicknamed the Genghis Khan haplogroup because of its massive spread, though recent studies suggest the reality is more complex. The Mongols weren't just conquerors, they were unifiers of civilizations. They ruled over China, Persia, Russia, and beyond, facilitating massive migration and intermarriage. Their empire, at its peak, connected the East and the West like never before. Soldiers, administrators, and traders moved freely across their vast territory, and with them, so did their DNA. Mongol warriors didn't just leave battlefields behind. They left families, children, and a genetic legacy that still echoes through modern populations. Take Central Asia, for example. The Kazakhs, Uzbeks, and especially the Hazara of Afghanistan show a strong genetic link to Mongolian ancestry. The Hazara, in particular, have been found to carry East Asian DNA at significantly higher rates than their neighbors, and history confirms that Mongol armies were stationed there for generations. Even in places like Iran and Turkey, subtle traces of Mongolian genetics can be found, likely remnants of the Mongol rule under the Ilkhanate dynasty. But the genetic impact didn't stop in Asia. The Mongols pushed into Europe, reaching as far as Hungary and Poland in the 13th century. Though their occupation in Europe was brief, their influence remained. Today, we see traces of Mongolian DNA among certain Russian and Tatar populations, particularly in the Volga-Ural region, where the descendants of the Golden Horde once ruled. Even in Turkey, some lineages show a faint but distinct East Asian signature, a silent reminder of the Mongol conquests. However, genetics is not just about conquest. It's about survival, adaptation, and legacy. The reason Mongolian DNA spread so widely wasn't just because of war. It was because of the way they structured their society. Elite Mongol rulers had multiple wives and concubines, ensuring that their lineage was passed down in large numbers. This wasn't unique to Genghis Khan himself, but was a practice followed by Mongol nobles throughout generations. Over time, these bloodlines merged into local populations, blending into the genetic fabric of entire civilizations. The fascinating part is that modern genetic studies continue to reshape our understanding of Mongolian ancestry. While early research suggested that all carriers of CM217 might be direct descendants of Genghis Khan, newer studies suggest a more nuanced story. This lineage likely existed before the Mongol Empire and expanded rapidly due to the success of Mongolic-speaking tribes, rather than just one individual. Even so, the Mongol genetic footprint is undeniable, shaping populations from East Asia to the Middle East and even parts of Eastern Europe. What makes this story even more intriguing is that many people today have no idea that they might carry this legacy in their DNA. With modern ancestry testing, individuals from vastly different backgrounds are discovering links to Mongolian ancestry they never expected. It's a reminder that history isn't just something written in books, it's written in our very genes. For centuries, the vast grasslands of Mongolia have been home to a people whose genetic legacy stretches far beyond their homeland. While history remembers the Mongols for their military conquests, science tells another story, one hidden deep in our DNA. The key to tracing Mongolian ancestry lies in genetic markers, unique signatures passed down through generations. These markers hold the secrets of one of history's most influential migrations, revealing how a once isolated nomadic empire shaped the genetics of millions across the world. One of the most defining elements of Mongolian ancestry is found on the Y chromosome, the genetic material passed from father to son. Among Mongolian men, the dominant lineage is haplogroup C, M217. This genetic marker, once considered the Genghis Khan haplogroup, is found in strikingly high numbers among Mongolic-speaking populations, including the Buryats of Siberia, the Kalmyks of Russia, and the Kazakhs of Central Asia. But its reach extends far beyond Mongolia itself. Studies show that significant percentages of men in regions once under Mongol rule, like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and even parts of Afghanistan, carry this lineage, proving just how far Mongolian genes have traveled. But Y-DNA only tells one side of the story. The maternal lineage, traced through mitochondrial DNA, adds another layer to Mongolian genetic history. Unlike the Y chromosome, which is limited to male inheritance, mtDNA is passed down from mothers to all their children. This makes it an invaluable tool for understanding how Mongolian women contributed to the genetic blending of populations. Studies reveal that Mongolian mtDNA is predominantly East Eurasian, featuring haplogroups such as D, C, B, and G, lineages commonly found in East Asia and Siberia. However, an intriguing discovery is the presence of West Eurasian maternal lineages, particularly in Western Mongolia. This suggests that Mongolian women, much like their male counterparts, had genetic exchanges with populations from as far west as Persia and even Eastern Europe. What makes Mongolian ancestry even more fascinating is the presence of genetic diversity within the Mongolian population itself. Modern genome-wide studies show that Mongolians are not a homogeneous group. Rather, their DNA is a complex blend of East Asian, Central Asian, and even traces of European ancestry. This genetic diversity is a direct reflection of Mongolia's history as a crossroads of civilizations. The ancient Silk Road, which passed through Mongol-controlled territories, facilitated not just trade, but also the movement of people and their genes. Over centuries, the Mongols absorbed influences from the steppe nomads of Central Asia, Turkic tribes, and even the Indo-European speaking Scythians, creating a genetic mosaic that continues to define Mongolian identity today. One of the most exciting breakthroughs in recent years has been the ability to trace Mongolian ancestry using modern DNA testing. Advances in genetic research allow individuals around the world to discover Mongolian ancestry they never knew they had. In some cases, people with no known Mongolian heritage are finding segments of DNA that link them back to the steppes. This is because Mongolian DNA has been dispersed so widely that it appears in unexpected places, sometimes in populations with no direct historical ties to the Mongol Empire. Beyond its historical impact, Mongolian DNA also carries unique adaptations. For example, certain genetic traits found in Mongolians are linked to endurance in harsh climates, including metabolic advantages suited for extreme cold and a diet high in animal protein. Some genetic variants associated with Mongolian ancestry have even been linked to specific facial structures, including high cheekbones and epicanthic folds, traits commonly associated with East Asian populations. These adaptations, honed over thousands of years on the Mongolian steppe, reflect the deep connection between genetics and environment. Mongolian genetic markers are more than just remnants of the past. They are living proof of how history continues to shape us. Whether through Y-DNA, mtDNA, or unique genetic traits, the legacy of Mongolian ancestry is imprinted in millions of people across the world. As science continues to uncover new findings, one thing remains certain: the story of Mongolian DNA is far from over. The influence of Mongolian DNA extends far beyond the borders of modern-day Mongolia, leaving a genetic imprint on populations across Asia, the Middle East, and even parts of Europe. Unlike the temporary rule of many historical empires, the genetic impact of the Mongols remains a permanent part of human ancestry. Their conquests reshaped not just political boundaries, but also the very fabric of the gene pools in the lands they touched. But where exactly do we see this Mongolian legacy today? And how deep does it go? One of the most striking examples of Mongolian genetic influence is found in Central Asia, where Mongol rule had one of its most lasting effects. Populations such as the Kazakhs, Uzbeks, and Kyrgyz still carry a significant percentage of Mongolian genetic markers, particularly the Y-DNA haplogroup C, M217. Among the Hazara people of Afghanistan, this lineage is even more pronounced, with genetic studies showing a much higher frequency of Mongolian ancestry compared to surrounding ethnic groups. This genetic link is not surprising, given that the Hazaras trace their origins to Mongol soldiers and settlers who remained in the region after the Mongol invasion. In parts of western China, particularly among the Uyghurs, traces of Mongolian DNA also persist, though they have blended over centuries with Turkic and Persian influences. In China, the Mongols ruled as the Yuan dynasty, an era that brought profound political and cultural changes. While they were eventually overthrown, remnants of Mongolian DNA can still be found in some northern Chinese populations. Ethnic minorities such as the Dongxiang, Monyar, and Dor, who still speak Mongolic languages, exhibit clear genetic ties to their Mongolian ancestors. However, due to the massive population size of China and the relatively small number of Mongol rulers, their genetic impact on the broader Han Chinese population remains minimal. Moving westward, Persia and the Middle East also bear traces of Mongolian genetic influence, though at lower frequencies than Central Asia. The Mongols, under the Ilkhanate, ruled Persia for over a century, and during this time, intermarriage between Mongol elites and Persian nobility introduced East Asian genetic markers into the region. While the Mongols were eventually absorbed into Persian culture, genetic studies have detected small but distinct Mongolian signals in modern-day Iranian and Turkish populations. Some isolated communities in Afghanistan and northern Pakistan, such as the Mogul tribe, still claim direct descent from Mongol warriors. In Eastern Europe, the Mongol influence came through the Golden Horde, which ruled over large parts of modern-day Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan for nearly 250 years. Over time, the Mongol rulers of this region adopted Islam and gradually merged with the local Tatar and Turkic populations. As a result, Mongolian genetic markers are present among certain Tatar, Bashkir, and Nogai ethnic groups, though much of the Mongol ancestry in Russia has blended with Slavic and Turkic lineages over centuries. Genetic studies have even found Mongolian Y-DNA haplogroups at trace levels among some Crimean Tatar and Volga-Ural populations, further confirming this historical connection. One of the most surprising discoveries has been the detection of Mongolian DNA in parts of Turkey and the Caucasus. The Mongol invasions and later Turkic migrations carried Mongolian genetic markers into regions where they might not be expected. Among some ethnic groups in Dagestan and Chechnya, as well as certain Turkic-speaking populations in Anatolia, researchers have found low but detectable levels of Mongolian ancestry. This likely stems from the long period of Mongol rule over the region and the movement of Mongol-affiliated Turkic tribes into the Ottoman Empire. While the Mongols did not settle permanently in most of Europe, traces of their genetic legacy have been identified in unexpected places. In Hungary, historical records describe Mongol and Turkic warriors who served as mercenaries and later assimilated into the local population. Some genetic studies have even uncovered East Asian mitochondrial DNA in medieval Hungarian burial sites, suggesting that Mongolian maternal ancestry may have entered the region during the Mongol invasions. However, in broader European populations, Mongolian DNA is largely absent, as the Mongols never established long-term settlements in Western or Central Europe. The spread of Mongolian DNA is not just a story of conquest, it is a testament to the enduring impact of migration, assimilation, and cultural exchange. Though the Mongol Empire has long since faded, its genetic imprint remains embedded in the DNA of millions of people worldwide. Every new genetic study continues to uncover connections that were once invisible, proving that history is not just something we read about, it lives within us. For centuries, the Mongols were known for their dominance on the battlefield, but their legacy didn't just shape history, it shaped genetics. As modern technology unlocks the secrets of human ancestry, scientists are uncovering a deeper story about Mongolian DNA. Cutting-edge genetic research is revealing surprising insights about the people of Mongolia, their ancient migrations, and how their genes spread across continents. But perhaps even more fascinating is the discovery of unique genetic adaptations that helped the Mongols survive the extreme conditions of the Eurasian steppe. Recent whole genome studies have provided a clearer picture of Mongolian ancestry. Unlike many populations that remained isolated, the Mongols were a genetically diverse group due to their position at the crossroads of Asia. Advanced sequencing shows that modern Mongolians are primarily East Eurasian, but also carry significant traces of Central and West Eurasian ancestry. This genetic diversity is a direct result of historical migrations, conquests, and interactions with surrounding civilizations. What's even more intriguing is the genetic connection between Mongolians and certain indigenous groups in the Americas, evidence of ancient migrations that predate the Mongol Empire by thousands of years. One of the most debated topics in genetic research has been the so-called Genghis Khan haplogroup. Early studies suggested that a single Y chromosome lineage, CM217, was directly linked to Genghis Khan and his descendants, but newer research has challenged this assumption. Advanced Y-DNA sequencing has shown that while this lineage expanded rapidly during the Mongol Empire, it likely predates Genghis Khan himself. Some researchers argue that multiple Mongol clans contributed to its spread, rather than a single bloodline. Others have raised an even more controversial possibility, that Genghis Khan may have belonged to a completely different Y-DNA haplogroup altogether. This debate remains unresolved, as no confirmed genetic sample from Genghis Khan himself has ever been recovered. Another breakthrough in modern research has been the study of ancient DNA. By analyzing remains from Mongol-era burial sites, scientists can reconstruct the genetic profiles of individuals who lived during the height of the empire. Some findings have confirmed what historical records suggested. Mongols intermarried with a wide range of populations, absorbing genetic traits from the Middle East, Central Asia, and even Eastern Europe. Other discoveries have raised new questions, such as the presence of unexpected genetic markers in Mongol elite burials, suggesting that their ancestry may have been more complex than previously thought. Beyond lineage tracing, scientists are also studying how Mongolian DNA contributed to specific genetic traits. One of the most significant findings involves adaptations to the harsh climate of the Mongolian steppe. Genetic analysis has identified unique metabolic traits that help Mongols process a diet rich in dairy and meat, crucial for survival in an environment with scarce vegetation. Some Mongolian populations also carry genetic variants linked to high-altitude adaptation, similar to those found in Tibetan and Andean populations. These traits provided a survival advantage in the rugged terrain where they lived and traveled. Another surprising discovery relates to physical characteristics commonly associated with Mongolian ancestry. Certain genetic markers linked to facial structure, including high cheekbones and epicanthic folds, have been traced back to ancient populations of Northeast Asia, confirming a deep ancestral connection between Mongolians and other East Eurasian groups. Some research also suggests that Mongolian DNA carries genes linked to enhanced endurance and immune system adaptations, possibly a reflection of their physically demanding lifestyle as nomadic warriors. The growing field of genetic research is not only reshaping what we know about Mongolian ancestry, but also challenging long-held historical assumptions. DNA studies are revealing that the Mongol Empire's genetic impact was not uniform. Some regions saw a major influx of Mongolian ancestry, while others show little trace of it. This suggests that cultural influence did not always translate into genetic influence. Some Mongol rulers integrated into local populations, while others maintained genetic separation, depending on the region and historical context. Perhaps the most exciting aspect of modern genetic research is the ability for individuals to discover their own Mongolian ancestry. Advances in commercial DNA testing have made it possible for people around the world to uncover genetic links to the Mongols, even in places where Mongolian heritage was never documented. Unexpected connections are emerging, proving that the genetic story of the Mongols is still being written. As research continues, one thing is clear: Mongolian DNA holds many more secrets waiting to be uncovered. With every new discovery, we get closer to understanding not just the past, but also how the movements of ancient peoples continue to shape who we are today. For centuries, the story of Mongolian DNA has fascinated historians and scientists alike, but not everything we think we know is true. As genetic research advances, many long-standing beliefs about Mongolian ancestry are being questioned, refined, or completely overturned. Some of the most widely accepted ideas about Genghis Khan's genetic legacy, the spread of Mongol genes, and their impact on global populations are now under scrutiny. What if some of the biggest stories we've heard about Mongolian DNA aren't entirely accurate? One of the most persistent myths is that Genghis Khan personally fathered millions of descendants. Early genetic studies suggested that the Y-DNA haplogroup CM217, found in millions of men across Asia, could be traced back to Genghis Khan himself. However, more recent research has challenged this narrative. Scientists now believe this lineage may have predated Genghis Khan by centuries, and its spread was likely due to the expansion of multiple Mongolic-speaking clans rather than just one ruler. While Genghis Khan certainly had many children, the idea that he single-handedly left a genetic mark on millions may be an oversimplification of a much broader phenomenon. Another major controversy surrounds Genghis Khan's actual Y-DNA haplogroup. While the famous CM217 lineage is often linked to him, some researchers argue that his true haplogroup remains unknown. In fact, ancient DNA analysis from suspected Mongol noble burials has revealed unexpected findings, including traces of haplogroups more commonly associated with West Eurasian ancestry. Some theories even suggest that Genghis Khan's paternal line may have belonged to a different lineage altogether, possibly an R1b subclade, which is more commonly found in European and Central Asian populations. However, because no confirmed remains of Genghis Khan have ever been tested, his true genetic identity remains one of the greatest mysteries in genetic history. Beyond the question of Genghis Khan's lineage, the extent of Mongolian genetic influence is another topic of debate. Many assume that Mongolian DNA is widespread across all the regions the Mongols once ruled, but genetic studies suggest otherwise. While some populations, such as the Kazakhs, Uzbeks, and Hazaras, show strong Mongolian genetic signatures, others, like the Persians and most Middle Eastern groups, display only minimal traces. This challenges the assumption that Mongol rule always led to significant genetic mixing. In some cases, Mongols ruled as a military elite without intermarrying extensively with local populations, which may explain why their genetic footprint is uneven across different regions. Another misconception is that the Mongol invasions caused massive population replacement. Historical records describe the destruction of cities and the displacement of entire populations, leading many to believe that Mongol rule wiped out local gene pools. However, genetic evidence suggests that in many cases, conquered populations rebounded over time, diluting the Mongolian genetic influence. In places like Persia and China, the Mongols assimilated into local cultures rather than completely replacing existing populations. This means that while their genetic impact was significant in some areas, it was far less in others, contradicting the idea that Mongol invasions completely reshaped the genetics of every region they controlled. One of the more surprising debates in Mongolian genetic research is the role of women in spreading Mongolian ancestry. While much attention has been given to Y-DNA lineages, which are passed from father to son, mitochondrial DNA, passed from mother to child, tells a different story. Some studies suggest that Mongol conquests may have led to more male-mediated gene flow, meaning that Mongol men had a greater genetic influence than Mongol women. However, other research has shown that Mongolian maternal lineages did spread, particularly in regions where Mongol women accompanied migrations or intermarried with local elites. This highlights a more complex pattern of genetic exchange than the traditional narrative suggests. The final major controversy involves the modern interpretation of Mongolian ancestry tests. With the rise of commercial DNA testing, many people are discovering small percentages of Mongolian ancestry in their results. However, geneticists warn that tracing Mongolian ancestry through consumer DNA tests is not always straightforward. Because Mongolian DNA shares similarities with other East Asian and Central Asian populations, some tests may overestimate or underestimate true Mongolian heritage. Furthermore, the concept of Mongolian DNA itself is fluid. Mongolia has been home to various groups over thousands of years, meaning that what we call Mongolian ancestry today may include contributions from different ancient populations. As research continues, many of these controversies may eventually be resolved. New discoveries in ancient DNA, improved genetic analysis, and deeper historical context are helping to refine our understanding of Mongolian genetic history. What is clear, however, is that the story of Mongolian DNA is far more complex than the myths suggest. Science is constantly evolving, and with each breakthrough, we come closer to uncovering the full truth about one of the most remarkable genetic legacies in history. The influence of Mongolian DNA is not just a relic of history. It is a living testament to how genetics and environment shape human survival. Beyond lineage and ancestry, the DNA of Mongolians carries distinct traits that allowed them to thrive in one of the most extreme landscapes on Earth. From the icy winters of the steppe to the high-altitude regions of the Altai Mountains, Mongolian genes reveal remarkable adaptations that go beyond simple inheritance. Scientists are now uncovering genetic traits that help the Mongols not only survive, but dominate as one of the most resilient warrior societies in history. One of the most fascinating genetic adaptations found in Mongolian DNA relates to dietary survival in harsh environments. Traditional Mongolian diets consist primarily of animal products, meat, dairy, and fat. Yet Mongolians have historically shown an exceptional ability to digest and metabolize these foods efficiently. Genetic studies suggest that Mongolians carry a unique set of metabolic adaptations that help process high-protein, high-fat diets without the health risks that similar diets pose to other populations. The ability to efficiently convert fat into energy was a crucial survival mechanism, allowing Mongol warriors to sustain themselves on long military campaigns with little access to carbohydrates. Another striking genetic trait is lactose tolerance, which is far more common among Mongolians than in many other East Asian populations. While lactose intolerance is prevalent in much of Asia, Mongolians have inherited genetic variations that enable them to digest dairy into adulthood. This is a direct adaptation to the traditional reliance on mare's milk and fermented dairy products like arag. The ability to consume milk as a primary food source provided essential nutrients and hydration, particularly during the harsh winters of the Mongolian steppe. Mongolian DNA has also been linked to cold resistance, an adaptation crucial for life in an environment where temperatures can plummet well below freezing. Studies on populations living in extreme climates, such as Mongolia and Siberia, have identified genetic variants that influence thermoregulation, the body's ability to maintain heat. Some of these genes affect fat distribution, ensuring insulation in cold weather, while others regulate blood circulation to prevent frostbite in extreme conditions. These adaptations allowed the Mongols to survive and fight under brutal weather conditions that would have been unbearable for most other civilizations. One of the lesser-known but significant adaptations in Mongolian genetics is high-altitude endurance. While not as extensively studied as populations in Tibet or the Andes, some Mongolian groups, particularly those living in the Altai region, show genetic markers linked to improved oxygen utilization at high elevations. These adaptations reduce the effects of hypoxia, allowing individuals to function effectively in oxygen-deprived environments. Given the mobility of the Mongol Empire, this trait would have been a major advantage in warfare, allowing Mongolian horsemen to cross vast mountainous regions with little physiological strain. Beyond physical endurance, Mongolian genetics also reveal immune system advantages that played a role in survival. Throughout history, the Mongols were exposed to diverse pathogens due to their interactions with multiple civilizations. Genetic research indicates that Mongolians may carry variations in immune-related genes that help them resist infections, especially during long military campaigns. Some studies have even suggested that their genetic immunity may have contributed to the resilience of Mongol warriors in foreign lands, where diseases often devastated other invading forces. Another fascinating discovery in Mongolian DNA relates to facial and skeletal structure, which is believed to have evolved in response to both climate and lifestyle. The high cheekbones and broad facial features common among Mongolians are thought to be adaptations for life on the windy, sun-exposed steppe. Certain genetic variants influence bone density and skull shape, contributing to stronger jawlines and facial structures that provide advantages in cold and dry environments. Some studies also suggest that Mongolians may have genetic traits linked to muscle composition, which could explain their historical reputation for exceptional horsemanship and endurance. The study of Mongolian DNA is still evolving, and researchers continue to uncover new genetic traits that explain how this population adapted so successfully to its environment. These adaptations, whether related to diet, endurance, immunity, or physical resilience, are not just historical footnotes. They are living evidence of how genetics shaped human survival in extreme conditions. The story of Mongolian DNA is a journey that spans thousands of years, shaping populations across continents. But this legacy is not just about the past. It is an ongoing narrative that continues to evolve with every new discovery. Modern technology has made it possible for individuals around the world to trace their Mongolian ancestry, revealing surprising genetic connections that were once hidden. With each breakthrough, scientists are uncovering more about how Mongolian genetics have persisted, adapted, and influenced the modern world. One of the most revolutionary advancements in recent years has been commercial DNA testing, which allows individuals to explore their ancestry with unprecedented detail. Many people who take these tests are surprised to find small percentages of Mongolian heritage in their results, even if they have no known Mongolian ancestors. This is due to the widespread movement of Mongolian genes throughout history, carried by warriors, traders, and migrating populations. In some cases, people from regions that were never directly ruled by the Mongols are discovering unexpected links to the genetic footprint of the empire. Beyond consumer ancestry tests, population genetic studies are providing deeper insights into how Mongolian DNA has evolved over time. Scientists are now using advanced sequencing techniques to analyze ancient remains, comparing them to modern Mongolian populations. These studies have revealed that while Mongolians today share many genetic traits with their historical ancestors, there have also been significant shifts due to centuries of migration, intermarriage, and adaptation. In other words, Mongolian DNA is not a static relic of history. It has continued to change and diversify, reflecting the dynamic nature of human evolution. Another important area of research focuses on genetic health and inherited traits within Mongolian populations. Certain genetic markers found in Mongolians have been linked to health advantages, such as resistance to specific diseases and efficient metabolism of proteins and fats. However, like all populations, Mongolians also carry unique genetic risks for certain conditions. By studying these genetic patterns, researchers hope to improve medical understanding and develop targeted treatments for genetic disorders that are more common in Mongolian and Central Asian populations. The influence of Mongolian DNA is also being studied in diaspora communities, descendants of Mongolic-speaking groups who migrated or were displaced over the centuries. From the Kalmyks of Russia to the Mongolian communities of Inner Mongolia in China, these populations provide valuable insights into how Mongolian ancestry has been preserved outside of Mongolia itself. Despite centuries of cultural shifts, many of these groups have retained distinct genetic markers that connect them back to their Mongolian roots. As genetic research progresses, one of the biggest questions scientists are trying to answer is how Mongolian ancestry will continue to evolve in the future. With increasing globalization and intermarriage, the genetic landscape of Mongolia is changing. While some ancient genetic markers will persist, others may become less common over time. This raises fascinating questions about the future of Mongolian identity, both genetically and culturally. The study of Mongolian DNA is far from over. Every new genetic discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, revealing how a once nomadic people left an enduring mark on the human genome. As technology advances and our understanding of genetics deepens, the story of Mongolian ancestry will continue to unfold, connecting the past, present, and future in ways we are only beginning to understand.